Well, good day, everyone, and welcome to another broadcast from the studios of the Audible Local Ledger here in Mashpee, Massachusetts, of the Cape Cod Times for Tuesday, May the 5th. This is Doug Fagan, your volunteer reader, enjoying a very beautiful, finally, spring day here in Mashpee and across the Cape. A sterling day, in fact. And for those of you who may be of Mexican descent or just otherwise wish to have an excuse to party, happy Cinco de Mayo to you. Have a great celebratory day. All right, friends, let's take a look at the weather for today and throughout the week here in the South Shore area, and of course here on the Cape as well. As I said, today is a stellar day, finally, with a high of 64 degrees in the Cape areas, and mostly sunshine with some clouds today. An overnight low of 55 degrees and a full moon. It's going to stay breezy today, however, as it was the last couple days, and it's going to be a little cloudy and breezy into tomorrow as well. Tomorrow, Wednesday, we're going to have a high of 62 degrees with a overnight low of 51. Variable clouds and a few showers tomorrow and continued breezy. Thursday, dropping down 6 degrees to a high of 56. Windy and cooler with rain and a probable thunderstorm and an overnight low of 46 degrees. Friday, we have Mr. Sun returning with partial sunshine and some clouds and a high of 60 degrees. Overnight low of 45. And then Saturday, we have mostly sunny and some clouds with a high dipping for the second time this week into the 50s at 58 degrees. So at least for now, we can expect temperatures mostly in the 60s or at worst high 50s, which is not all bad. So if you're going to go out and about for some errands this week or do what you have to do and you don't want to get wet or rained on, maybe today and Friday would be your best bet because we are having some rain on Wednesday and Thursday. All right, friends, looking at some temperatures along the South Shore. These will be high temperatures that I'll be giving you. We start at the South Shore in Plymouth at 70 degrees. Wareham is at 66 and Buzzards Bay at 65. Crossing the Cape into the Bourne and Sandwich area, we have a high today of 65, Mashpee 62, Falmouth 65. Hyannis will be a high of 64 today, Barnstable 66, Dennis 64, Chatham out of the elbow of the Cape 60 degrees as a high, Brewster 64, Eastham 61, and Truro 63, and at Race Point out on the tip of the Cape at Provincetown, we shall have a high today of 63 degrees. So, you saltwater swimmers, you're so anxious to get back in the pool, right? Well, the wave heights today on Cape Cod Bay are 2 to 4 feet, so that's not all bad. But the temperature of the water is 48 degrees, which is not so great. Wind direction out in Cape Cod Bay is south-southwest at 15 to 25 knots. As we said, it's pretty breezy today. Out at Nantucket Sound, you want to go swimming there? Well, it's a bit warmer. 53 degrees is the water temperature there. Higher wave heights at 4 to 8 feet and a southwest wind at 20 to 30 knots. Again, breezy. All right, let's take the ferry out to the islands. You want to go first to Martha's Vineyard, of course, where we have at Oak Bluffs a high of 61 degrees. The same holds true for Edgartown. Again, mostly sunny, partly cloudy, and with strong breezes. Heading east out to Nantucket, where we have a high of 59 at Nantucket Village and 57 at Secaucet. So there you have it, friends, a look at the weather not only for today, but throughout the week, as well as the water temperatures as well. So if, again, you're going out on some errands and you want sunshine and no rain, your best bet is to do those things today and or Friday and Saturday. Okay, friends, that does it for the weather. Let's now turn to page 1 of today's Tuesday, the May 5th edition of the Cape Cod Times. And, of course, we'll look for articles of local or state and regional interest first, and then move along to items of a more national focus. This headline article, friends, talks about the ship owned by WOE, the Woods Hole Oceanographic Institute. The ship's name is Atlantis, and it is in Cape Cod Bay. That's the headline, Atlantis in Cape Cod. After a tune-up in Florida, the research vessel is home for a very brief stay. The picture is in the article and as well, and it says underneath the picture, the RV Atlantis makes its way to the WHOI dock on April the 28th. The Atlantis is returned to its home port at Woods Hole Oceanographic Institution after a multi-year series of expeditions across the Pacific and beyond. So here is that article about the Atlantis. Harbor traffic in Woods Hole rarely treats any arrival as extraordinary. This time, however, it did. On April 28th, the RV Atlantis eased back into the dock behind the Woods Hole Oceanographic Institution's Smith Laboratory after 4 years away, a span long enough that its absence had become part of the normal working landscape on shore. The well-known research vessel's deployment included deep-sea ocean work far from its Cape Cod home. Atlantis has spent recent years supporting deep-sea exploration missions with the human-occupied submersible Alvin, according to WHOI, referring to the vehicle made famous for its explorations of the RMS Titanic wreck and its ability to dive an astounding 4 miles into the ocean's depth. A crowd gathered on the dock to welcome the Atlantis home, including Elia Bergeron, 7, who was there with her grandparents Peter and Karen Bergeron. That was to greet the ship and the vessel's captains, Derek Bergeron. Bergeron, who has been a sailing captain on the Atlantis since 2018 after work on the RV Neil Armstrong ship, described the movement of return simply as being, "It's great for the ship to be back in its home port after 4 long years." On a personal level, the return carried a different weight. He said he arranged for his parents to bring his young daughter to the dock for the arrival. She's never seen any ship before, he said, so when she finally did, she was over the moon. Bergeron brought her on board after docking. All she wanted to see was my room, he said with a laugh, noting it's where he calls home while he's at sea. "It was so very special for us," he said. "She would not let go of me." So a focus on deep and geological active environments is a sentence that leads us into our next paragraph, which states, during its 4-year tour, the RV Atlantis, which the Office of Naval Research owns and WHOI operates, explored from the Galapagos Islands to Easter Island, Axial Seamont off Oregon, and the Aleutian Trench, along with stops at ports along the west coast from Alaska to Southern California, and transits through the Panama Canal. The cruises were all focused on research in deep and geographically active water environments. WHOI described the vessel's mission as part of an extensive multi-year series of expeditions across the Pacific and beyond. The same missions brought the Atlantis crews, which swap out every 3 months or so over the course of the deployment. The crews were brought into partnership with Alvin, the submersible, focusing on exploration of hydrothermal fields, underwater volcanoes, and deep sea trenches. Before returning home, the 274-foot Atlantis spent the winter in scheduled dry dock in Florida for maintenance. The journey back to Woods Hole afterwards was anything but idle, as the ship supported a National Science Foundation-funded research project deploying and recovering instruments that measure ocean currents, temperature, and pressure near the Pioneer Array, a marine observing station in the Mid-Atlantic Bight. So sea trials with RV Atlantis and Alvin coming up. There's a picture in between the paragraphs, and it shows Elia Bergeron, 7, waving to her father, the captain, Derek Bergeron, as he brings the ship into its home port on April 28th. Elia Bergeron was on the dock with her grandparents, Peter and Karen Bergeron, who are the parents of the ship's captain. Okay, returning to the article, it says, according to WHOI, Atlantis is one of the world's most advanced oceanographic research vessels, and it will continue that work in just about 6 weeks. It's picking up Alvin, which was trucked across the country last fall to undergo inspection, maintenance, and upgrades in the Woods Hole Institute. In early June, the Atlantis will depart again for Alvin's post-overall sea trials off Bermuda, a required step before both vessels return to operational work at sea. For Bergeron, the job maintains and remains consistent regardless of location. His role, he said, is keeping everybody safe, completing the mission in a safe and efficient manner, and providing these people with the platforms they need to do their work. After Alvin's Bermuda sea trials, Atlantis is expected to return briefly to Woods Hole before heading north to Canada and Greenland, then to the Cayman Trench, and in the fall back through the Panama Canal toward the Pacific and the Galapagos Islands. Bergeron said Woods Hole is probably his favorite destination, but the exploration never pauses for very long. The ship is safe at its home port, but that's not what ships are for, he said. We're not intended to remain in our home port, and we look forward to our next scientific adventure. All right, friends, there you have it. That concludes the article, the main article here on the front page of Tuesday's May 5th edition of the Cape Cod Times about the ship Atlantis returning to its home in Woods Hole for a few weeks. We're now moving on, friends, to page 3, the Cape and Islands page, which is probably 70% full of ads and pictures, but there is an article of local interest here along with a picture. And top of the picture, it says, "On board for a stroll," and it shows various pedestrians on a boardwalk bridge. Underneath the picture, it says this: "Visitors to Parker's River Landing walk along the new 6-foot-wide boardwalk loop that provides views of the saltwater marsh surrounding Lewis Pond, taken on May 2nd. Parker's River Landing in West Yarmouth was officially opened Saturday. The site is where the former drive-in theater was located on Route 28. For more than 3 decades, the town has studied and held optional meetings for the reuse of the property, including more than 50 public meetings. The town also hosted a coastal resilience fair with local experts and organizations in order to present strategies for protecting the shoreline and adapting to climate change. Parker's River Landing includes an elevated boardwalk, That's in the picture above. Very nice. A kayak launch designed to adapt to coastal conditions, and a bathhouse with flood barrier and mounted elevation. The project also includes restored natural habitats and invasive species management. A playground has also been created at the park. All right, friends, we will move now to the article that accompanies this picture on page 3, the Cape and Islands page. The headline here says, Cape Cod Children's Place unveils new octopus rebranding. This article is by Beth McDermott of the Provincetown Banner newspaper. Here's the article. Cape Cod Children's Place has unveiled a new brand identity featuring an octopus symbol to reflect its growth and commitment to families, that according to a community announcement. The rebranding follows a strategic planning process that involved input from families, staff, and community partners. The new visual identity was designed to better represent the organization's mission, values, and the experience of the families it serves, that according to the group's announcement. Our new brand reflects who we have become and where we are going, said Aaron Sullivan, Executive Director of Cape Cod Children's Place. We listened closely to families, staff, and community partners throughout our planning process, and this identity captures the strength, adaptability, and hope we see every day in the people we serve. The octopus was chosen as the central element of the new visual identity due to its symbolism of curiosity, intelligence, and resilience. The creature's many arms represent ways Cape Cod Children's Place supports the community, including assisting parents, nurturing children, partnering with educators, and strengthening connections across Cape Cod. The octopus is also known for its ability to regenerate lost limbs, symbolizing the health, growth, and renewed confidence that families experience through the organization's programs and partnerships. The rebranding effort is part of the organization's ongoing growth and expansion of its programs and partnerships. Officials of the group said the new identity aims to more clearly express its mission and the lived experiences of the families it supports. All right, friends, that's it. The article reflecting upon the unveiling of the octopus branding for the Cape Cod Children's Place. Also on this page is a picture of a lot of beautiful young people, the guys and gals of the Cape Cod Upper Cape Regional Technical School. It says a scene from the prom night for Upper Cape Regional Technical School students on the grounds of the Coonamessett Inn on Gifford Street in Falmouth in a promenade before the start of their evening on May the 2nd. So, girls in beautiful gowns, guys in tuxes, all looking to get ready to have a great time at their prom. Moving on through today's paper, I've found another article relative to the Cape. This headline here says, Yarmouth's Anna Borrow Hayes helps women with money. This article is by Beth McDermott of the Provincetown Banner. Here it is. Women and girls living on low incomes may have a new ally in Anna Borrow Hayes. That's Hays. Hayes, a resident of Yarmouth and a certified financial planner, has been named President of the Year by the Women's Money Matters Group, a nonprofit that offers financial wellness programs for women and girls living on low incomes, that according to a community announcement. The award recognizes a volunteer who brings energy, expertise, and care to their cohorts, helping participants feel supported, confident in their financial journey. Recipients are selected selected through nominations from peers and the Women's Money Matters team. Hayes is a lawyer and part of the Advanced Planning Strategies team at Edelman Financial Engines. She has presented 8 times across the Women's Money Matters Financial Futures and Road to Retirement programs, 5 of those in the year 2025 and 2026. Hayes led the Healthy Today, Healthy Tomorrow workshop 4 times and has also presented on retirement income, savings, and Medicare, along with Medicaid and disability benefits. Women matter, and so does the way they earn, spend, and save, Hayes said. Financial knowledge supports not just personal well-being, but stronger families and communities. The goal is not perfection, it's creating the future you want. That's how you achieve meaningful empowerment. Hayes remained committed to planning an upcoming Level Up, that's the name of this workshop, Level Up, and supporting participants even during a recent winter storm that left her without power, that according to the group's announcement. Hayes brings a personal perspective to the importance of financial wisdom for women. Her late father, born just before the Great Depression and shaped by seeing his own mother struggle after she became a widow, instilled a lasting lesson. That is, women need to understand how to earn, use, and save money. That belief continues to guide Hayes now as she works with Women's Money Matters participants in today's sessions. Women's Money Matters presenters are subject matter experts who facilitate the 90-minute workshops on specific financial wellness topics for participants in the nonprofit's cohort-based programs. Unlike coaches who provide ongoing one-to-one support across the full 3-month program, presenters bring focused energy to a single session, grounding participants in the skills and information they need to move forward. Presenters come from backgrounds across finance, law, healthcare, and beyond. Anna is exactly the kind of presenter we want leading workshops for our participants, said Ariana Contreras, Associate Director of Volunteer Partnerships at Women's Money Matters. She brings real expertise, genuine warmth, and a personal commitment to this work that participants feel immediately upon entering the session. We are so glad to recognize her with this award. Participant nominators noted that Hayes made them, quote, feel comfortable and supported, end quote, throughout their sessions. Women's Money Matters builds the financial wellness, confidence, and security of women living on low incomes through a unique program that combines instructional workshops and personal one-to-one coaching, according to the group's announcement. All right, that concludes that article, which was meant to honor Anna Boro Hayes as an outstanding volunteer and involvement in the program Women's Money Matters. Okay, friends, those articles conclude the ones that are relative to the Cape and our region. So we will now move to articles that are more of a national reference. This first one says, mail-order abortion drug access is reinstated. This is a USA Today Network article with a dateline of Washington, D.C., and here it is. The Supreme Court on May 4th, yesterday, reinstated mail-order access to the widely used abortion drug mifepristone. That's Mifepristone. Mifepristone, a temporary decision that gives justices more time to consider the actual issue. The court intervened after the Food and Drug Administration was ordered on May 1 to revive a requirement that doctors prescribe the drug only after an in-person exam. It was the first time access to mifepristone had been significantly curtailed during years of litigation over the drug, which was first approved back in the year 2000 by the Federal Drug Administration. At the request of drug makers, Justice Samuel Alito paused until at least May 11th the restrictive ruling by a lower court while they decide what the rules for mifepristone should be as Louisiana challenges the expanded access. State officials argue that allowing the drug to be dispensed through the mail ignores the threat of complications from mifepristone, such as sepsis and hemorrhaging. Louisiana Attorney General Liz Murrill says that mailed delivery of the drug allows women to get around abortion bans. That, officials say, harms the state's ability to enforce its anti-abortion laws. In its May 1 ruling, the conservative 5th U.S. District Court of Appeals said Louisiana is likely to win its challenge and blocked mail-order access for now. Danco, that's D-A-N-C-O, Danco Laboratories, which makes Mifeprex, the brand name version of mifepristone, said that decision injected immediate confusion and upheaval into the highly time-sensitive medical decisions. The company also told the Supreme Court that Louisiana's challenge should be rejected for the same reasons the justices in the year 2024 tossed out a similar lawsuit brought by anti-abortion doctors. In that case, the court said the doctors could not sue because they hadn't shown they were sufficiently harmed by the Federal Drug Administration's loosening of the regulations for mifepristone in the year 2023. Louisiana officials say the state Medicaid program had to pay $92,000 for the emergency care of two women who had complications after taking mifepristone, and Danco said that's the company that the Supreme Court rejected a similar argument about downstream economic injuries when dismissing the anti-abortion doctors' lawsuit. Multiple Republican-led states are trying to make it harder to access mifepristone, a pill used in nearly two-thirds of abortions across the United States, including in states that have largely banned abortion. But Louisiana is alone in seeking such sweeping preliminary relief, GenBioPro said, which makes a generic version of Mifeprex. That company told the Supreme Court in its appeal. The Trump administration's FDA is now reviewing the safety of the drug, which it has previously approved long ago. Abortion rights advocates have called the review a sham, saying the science behind the agency's previous decision to okay the drug is solid. In January, the administration asked the judge to pause Louisiana's legal challenge until the FDA's review is complete. A federal judge agreed, but the Fifth U.S. Circuit blocked that ruling and said the in-person dispensing requirement should return while Louisiana appeals that judge's decision. All right, friends, that concludes that article. The headline for this next article says, Trump disapproved hits record high in new poll. So Trump's disapproval rate hits record high in new poll. This is a USA Today article. President Donald Trump's disapproval numbers hit a record high in a new poll, the latest in a series of surveys painting a gloomy picture for the president 6 months out from the November midterm elections. In the latest Washington Post, ABC News Ipsos poll, Trump's disapproval rating hit 62%, an all-time high from the survey's history throughout both terms in office. The high disapproval rate came alongside souring opinions on Trump's handling of the Iran war, the economy, and the cost of living issues that the president has consistently been polling poorly on over the past few months. Trump's overall approval rating in the new survey is only 37%, that dropping 2 points from the poll's previous February figures. It's a few points higher than the recent Reuters Ipsos poll released on April 28th, which put the president at a 34% approval rating, a record low in that survey's history. The New York Times daily average of Trump's approval numbers is slightly higher, tracking a 39% approval and a 58% disapproval. The most recent survey was conducted on April 24th through the 28th among 2,560 U.S. adults. The margin of error is plus or minus 2.2 percentage points. On the Iran war, 66, or 2 out of 3, every American disapprove of Trump's actions, according to that poll. An additional 33% said they approve of his approach to the war. But the president's performed worst on the subject of inflation and cost of living, with which more than 2/3 of survey respondents said they were very unhappy. His lowest rating is on the perceptions of his handling of the general cost of living in the country, with a 76% disapproval and 23% approval. When it comes to the economy overall, Trump fared slightly better, though a majority were still discontent with his performance, at a 66% disapproval. That is a 7-point decline since February, attributed to the progress or lack thereof of the Iran war and rapidly rising gas prices across the country as a result of involvement in the war. All right, that concludes that article about Trump's very low approval rating. Well, friends, we are at the midway point of today's broadcast of the Tuesday, May 5th, Cinco de Mayo edition of the Cape Cod Times. And as I mentioned previously, we are devoid now of any further articles relative to the Cape Islands, and we're focusing on national articles, but it is usually here where we do some obituaries. However, we do not have any obituaries in today's paper, so we'll continue on with other articles. And as you might guess, as I said before, many of these articles are related to what's happening as a result of the U.S.'s involvement in the war in Iran. This headline of the next article says, restaurant sales drop as Iran war pushes gas prices higher. This is a Reuters news agency article, and it has no specific dateline. Here's the article. Several U.S. restaurant chains, that is, including Wingstop and Domino's, reported weaker than expected sales growth in the latest quarter, saying that soaring gasoline prices caused by the U.S.-Israeli war on Iran have forced customers to cut back on other spending items such as food orders and going out to restaurants for lunch, dinner, or breakfast. Many restaurant operators don't expect consumers to feel relief anytime soon. Analysts expect other restaurant chains also will show declining sales growth in the upcoming earnings, including Shake Shack and Jack in the Box, according to LSEG averages. The U.S.-Israel war on Iran, which began in February, has brought the worst ever disruption to global oil supplies, driving up the average U.S. gasoline prices to a whopping $4.43% average across the country, a nearly 40% increase since this time last year, that according to GasBuddy.com. Gasoline prices have broken $6 in California, which regularly ranks as the largest state for restaurants. Wingstop, a chicken wing chain that pitches itself on affordability, said higher prices at the pump contributed to an 8.7% plunge in quarterly same-store sales, while CEO Michael Skipworth said it was extremely difficult for anyone to predict this macro environment. He told investors April 29th to expect shrinking sales over the year, in part because of expectation that gas prices will remain high. Even chains that did well in the latest quarter are staying very cautious. Chipotle, which posted better than expected same-store sales growth of 0.5%, maintained an outlook of flat growth over the year, which Chief Financial Officer Adam Reimer attributed part to the uncertainty over the war and gasoline prices. Wall Street forecasts reflect the darker mood. In April, for example, nearly twice as many restaurant analysts cut profit forecasts for the next quarter as opposed to raising them. Flagging investor confidence in the sector is also evident in the 5% drop in the LSEG U.S. Restaurant Index since the start of the war, erasing more than $40 billion in market value. The $4 mark at the pump is a tipping point, said Sebastian Fernandez, chief analyst at the U.S.-based restaurant consulting firm Revenue Management Solutions. Shortly after the war began, the firm analyzed 14.6 billion restaurant transactions over the last 4 years and found that as pump prices rise, restaurant visits gradually tick down until the $4 mark, at which the impact then doubles. The firm estimated that $4.20 average gasoline prices mean approximately 1.5% fewer restaurant visits, and if pump prices reach $5.10 or more, fast food restaurants could see a 3% drop in traffic. The firm estimated that for a restaurant drive-through with 300 daily transactions, a $1 spike in gasoline prices loses the restaurant about 6 customers a day, piling up to $22,000 in lost annual sales. Even before the latest spike in fuel costs, customers had been cutting back on restaurant spending, prompting costly discounts to win customers back. Yum Brands Taco Bell, which launched a value meal starting at $3 in January, reported 8% quarterly same-store sales growth in its U.S. restaurants. We're seeing a record level of value menus right now, said Mark Wieselfiske, head of the restaurant finance at TD Bank. Domino's Pizza CEO Russell Weiner told investors on April 28 that his chain's competitors ran promotions out of our playbook, partly contributing to the chain's weaker than expected 0.9% U.S. same-store sales growth. Although Weiner said his chain was better positioned to sustain the discounts, the company still cut sales forecasts for the future. Starbucks, which reported a 7.1% quarterly same-store sales growth in North America, may have actually benefited from the gloomy consumer outlook. CEO Brian Niccol told investors the company had gained among lower-income consumers who saw the chain's beverages as a little bit of indulgence since they had cut back on going out to restaurants. The next major indicator will come from McDonald's, which reports results on May the 7th, and last quarter posted longer than expected sales amid a drive to push more value meals. All right, that concludes that article. All right, friends, at this point, let's divert from the news here a little bit from the paper and take a look at the lottery drawings and the winning numbers for the most recent one, starting first with the two big ones, the Mega Millions and the Powerball. The Mega Millions jackpot is currently at $195 million. Now I'm going to read to you the winning numbers for the most recent drawing, which was held Friday, the 1st of May, and here are those winning numbers: 16, 21, 27, 41, 61, and 24. Again, Mega Millions from last Friday. The winning numbers are 16, 21, 27, 41, 61, and 24. Moving on to Powerball. It has a jackpot of only $30 million, and the most recent drawing was yesterday, the 4th of May, and here are those numbers: 30, 36, 42, 60, 63, and a Powerball of 13. Again, 30, 36, 42, 60, 63, and a Powerball of 13. Moving on to the Millionaire for Life drawing. The next drawing is today around 11:15 this evening. This particular game offers $1 million a year for life, and here are the winning numbers from yesterday, May the 4th. 8, 17, 22, 34, 39, and a Millionaire for Life ball of 5. 8, 17, 22, 34, 39, and a Millionaire for Life ball of 5. Mega Bucks. Here are the winning numbers again from yesterday, the 4th of May. 13, 21, 27, 40, 42, and 43. That's the Mega Bucks. Has a $17 million jackpot. The winning numbers from yesterday: 13, 21, 27, 40, 42, and 43. How about Mass Cash? All right. Yesterday's drawing for the midday numbers, these winners were 7, 10, 18, 21, and 33. 7, 10, 18, 21, 33. And the evening drawing, here are those winning numbers: 20, 21, 23, 30, 32. Evening Mass Cash: 20, 21, 23, 30, and 32. And finally, the numbers game. The midday numbers from yesterday were these: 1, 2, 5, 8. 1, 2, 5, 8 for the midday numbers, and the evening numbers game: 5, 6, 4, 7, 5, 6, 4, 7 for the evening numbers game. All right, friends, there you have it, a quick overview of the most recent winning numbers in the various lottery games. And again, you can't win if you don't play. So for those of you who do play, I say to you, as I always do, good luck, players. This next article has to do with something that you might find yourself involved with, and the headline here, now that we've reverted back to the newspaper from the lottery, says, lending money to family and friends can cause regret. This is a USA Today article. And it says here that here are the people from whom the respondents most commonly borrowed money. From their parents, 77, almost 78%. From siblings, 76%. From grandparents, 76%. And it goes on through cousins, friends, partners, and so forth. But underneath that says this as the article. When faced with an unexpected bill and needing cash right away, just over half of Americans who responded to a recent survey said that they have turned to family and friends for help, and similarly, just over half have lent money to people they know in their lives. What happens afterward? Well, that can get messy, according to a report from J.G. Wentworth. And according to a survey of over 1,200 respondents, 75% of those who have borrowed or lent money said they are no longer as close as they used to be with the other person who either lent them money or borrowed money. A total of 71% of the respondents said they became somewhat estranged from the other person, and 69% said the relationship ended entirely. The survey found that 54% of lenders said they forgave a debt entirely because it was putting a strain on the relationship of the people involved. There's a bit of gender divide here, too, with 58% of women saying they forgave the various debts, whereas 50% of men had done so as well. In fact, only 4% of the respondents said borrowing or lending money caused no problems at all. The remainder was roughly split in half between those who said it caused serious arguments and those who said it created some tension. The reason for that is clear when you see that 55% of the lenders had to ask more than once to be repaid, according to the survey. In about half the cases, no clear repayment timeline had been established, which makes repayment a fraught topic. The average person borrowed amount worked out to $297, according to the survey. J.G. Wentworth said that if that figure is extrapolated to the nation as a whole, that would work out to about $52 billion being borrowed. The survey found that the average still owed was $237 or $38 billion nationwide. Just over half of those with unpaid debts said they might struggle to repay their debt in full. So for the most part, people keep their financial requests within the family, according to the survey. So, I guess if you're thinking about loaning money to a friend or family member, well, maybe you might want to think twice, since it's seemingly, according to the respondents of the survey, somewhat difficult to get all your money back. So you might suggest a bank, a credit union, or other lending institution rather than yourself. But hard to say no to friends and family, right? All right, we are moving on. This next article involves Spirit Airlines. I don't know if any of you folks out there had tickets with Spirit for upcoming flights, but you may be interested in this article. Or if you had intended to use Spirit for an upcoming flight, the headline here is Spirit customers share memories of the airline. Again, this is a USA Today article with whom the Cape Cod Times is affiliated. Here's the article. Spirit Airlines was known for some spirited interactions involving passengers over the years, but some longtime customers are painting a different portrait of the ultra-low-cost carrier following its shuttering over this past weekend. For more than 3 decades, the airline carried travelers across the United States, Latin America, and the Caribbean, with a commitment to both savings and safety. However, years of financial troubles and recent spikes in fuel prices due to the Iran war finally proved too much for the carrier, which wound down operations on May 2nd. Spirit Airlines gets a lot of flack, but I'll be sad to see them go. Matthew Cappucci, a senior meteorologist at MyRadar, posted on X, echoing a sentiment shared by others across social media. In March of 2019, I was a college student with little disposable money. My grandfather's health was failing, and I knew he wouldn't live to see me graduate 6 weeks later, he recalled. So Cappucci caught a last-minute Spirit flight from Boston to Fort Myers and surprised his grandfather for lunch, getting him back in time for classes that same night. It was the last time he was able to speak. He died shortly thereafter, he said. I'm so incredibly glad I dropped the $99. I'll always be thankful that Spirit Airlines was around to get me there cheaply when no other airline could. Tricia Savage, CEO of the nonprofit Crowns for Change and founder of the Revolutionary Pageants, said Spirit consistently came through for her as a traveler with an invisible disability, that being psoriatic arthritis. As a disabled traveler, flying is never just about getting from point A to point B. You really have to consider how you feel when you fly, she told USA Today by email. Are you understood, accommodated, and respected? Does the seatbelt fit okay? Can you close it with your hands okay? Are you able to board without the pressure of help of crew if you need to? And do they have adaptable features for handicapped persons? She said Spirit was one of the only airlines, in her experience, that acknowledged and understood the Sunflower Initiative, which lets people with hidden disabilities wear a sunflower to discreetly let others know they may need assistance at one time or another. Of course, Spirit has often been the subject of negative comments or jokes, memes, and so forth, but their flexibility and accessibility is always what kept me coming back, Savage said, also extolling the airline's safety record and reliability. Like other ultra-low-cost carriers, Spirit was known for low prices, but charging customers for extras like baggage. Joshua Sheets of Radical Personal Finance appreciated that you always got what you paid for, and you could simply pay to get what you wanted. Once, while moving his family overseas, the financial planner was able to pay for 7 tickets and 49 suitcases on the same flight for around $7,000. I was so grateful to be able to actually buy all those bags. Every other major carrier restricts you to a maximum of 2 or 3 suitcases per ticket. Spirit let me buy what I wanted and just pay for it, he posted on X. Sheets didn't always travel on Spirit, however. He noted that he always considers the purpose of his travel before choosing airlines, but said, "Rest in peace, big yellow bus in the sky. I shall miss you." So I'm sure that with the bankrupt condition and the defunct airline Spirit now no longer operating, there are many people who are expressing pros and cons about the particular airline, but even more so, many people who are, having reservations are really scrambling to get other reservations with other airlines and to retrieve a refund for the money they've already paid, which, of course, Spirit is contemplating and will take time to do so. That is, refund the money. Here's another article that is referencing things as a result of the Iran war. The headline here says chefs say the war has hit ingredients and thus has raised cost for prepared meals. Underneath that headline is a picture of a lady named Shaw Netlash, chef and co-founder of the Lila Molino restaurant in Dubai, and she says she has scaled back production, cut her payroll, and is buying ingredients in smaller quantities for now amid war-related disruptions. So restaurants in Dubai turn to local supplies. This is a Reuters news agency, but I'm sure what affects restaurants in Dubai will affect restaurants worldwide as well, including here in the U.S. But here's the article. Dubai chef Shaw Lash at a Mexican restaurant, Lila Molino, flies in her avocados and tomatillos, small, tart green fruits native to Central America that are a staple of Mexican cuisine and key for her colorful, spicy dishes. Now, the Iran war is making such ingredients harder to source and much more expensive, Lash said, and other chefs have said as well, as the Gulf grapples with the closure of the Strait of Hormuz, that sea route, and spiking jet fuel prices, which push up all freight cost. Lash has scaled back production, cut her payroll, and is buying ingredients in smaller quantities for now. Measures she expects to be temporary, or hopes so anyhow. She's focusing on her make-at-home fajita kits, which have been a hit, and her grocery line. The reality of this is that cargo has gotten more expensive, gas prices have gone way up, the Strait of Hormuz is still blocked, Lash told Reuters at her restaurant in Dubai's trendy area of art and culture. This is really creating a problem for us as far as our supply goes. Chefs in the glitzy city are adapting their menus, with some turning to more regional or readily available foods or offering fewer dishes on their menu. Dubai authorities have rolled out broader economic support measures, relief on fees, and campaigns to get people out to dine. So the period of disrupted footfall. Well, the trend is a challenge for the United Arab Emirates as well. Full-service restaurant market estimated to be worth $9.5 billion last year by market researcher Morador Intelligence. Before the war started, it predicted 20% growth to $11.3 billion this year. But the war has changed the equation. After the United States and Israel launched strikes and began the war on Iran in late February, the Gulf saw several weeks of Iranian missile and drone attacks. Although a ceasefire came into effect on April 8, the Strait of Hormuz, the only sea access to the United Arab Emirates, which imports more than 80% of its food for consumption, remains effectively closed. The war has cut regional tourist arrivals as well, hit shoppers' numbers in luxury malls, affected high-end car sales, and disrupted restaurants, a pillar of Dubai's booming leisure and tourism sector, carefully built on an image of grandeur and safety. A survey by Juniper Strategy and the Global Restaurants Investment Forum found that UAE food service operators reported they were experiencing an average of a 27% drop in demand levels versus a year ago. Supplier cost increases averaged 13%, according to the report, which consulted 30 industry leaders between April 1 through April 8 who operate some 400 restaurants in the area. It added tourist-exposed locations and business districts were under the greatest pressure, while residential establishments showed greater resilience and, in some cases, mild growth. The Dubai Department of Economy and Tourism said in a statement that some operators were navigating a period of disrupted footfall and were finding creative ways to respond. Across the city, restaurants, chefs, and platforms are adapting through new formats, targeted offers, and menu changes and community-led initiatives. The UAE Ministry of Economy and Tourism did not respond to a request for comment on this article. Over the last few weeks, especially with the ceasefire and schools resuming, we've started to see a positive uplift in business and overall movement across the city. There's always a sense of normalcy returning, Chung said in a statement provided to the news agency. So, not only restaurants in the United States, but worldwide are being affected by the U.S. and Israel-initiated war in Iran, as we all are, with surging prices in gases and foods and other things. Let's move on. Well, friends, as we move toward the conclusion of today's broadcast, I thought it to be appropriate that we maybe look at some quotes about Mother's Day. And as a reminder, Mother's Day is this coming Sunday, May 10th. So if you've not gotten a gift or card and you're wishing to do so, you might be thinking about it during these next few days. All right, here's a couple quotes about Mother's Day. starting with this one. Mothers and their children are in a category all their own. There's no bond so strong in the entire world, no love so instantaneous and so forgiving. Here's another one by Sophia Loren. When you are a mother, you're never really alone in your thoughts. A mother always has to think twice, once for herself and once for her child. Here's another quote about Mother's Day. A mother's arms are more comforting than anyone else's. That from the late Princess Diana. Here's one more, this one from Leonardo DiCaprio. A mother's hug lasts long after she lets go. And another, a mother's love is everything. It's what brings a child into this world. It is what molds their entire being. When a mother sees her child in danger, she is literally capable of anything. Mothers have lifted cars off of their children and destroyed entire dynasties. A mother's love is the strongest energy known to man. That by Jamie McGuire. All right, friends, that brings us to the end of today's broadcast of the Tuesday, May 5th edition of the Cape Cod Times. And for all of you mothers out there, I will offer you an early Happy Mother's Day. You are very deserving of all the time, attention, and adulation you'll get on your special day, as well as being so deserving of that very same thing all year long. So again, to all you mothers, happy Mother's Day this Sunday. All right, friends, this has been Doug Fagan, your volunteer reader, coming to you from the studios of the Audible Local Ledger, here in today, anyhow, beautiful Mashpee, Massachusetts. So I look forward to reading for you the next time on Tuesday, the 12th of May. And I thank you for the privilege of your time in being able to share the newspaper with you today. So until next Tuesday, when we unite again, I wish you well, be happy, stay healthy, and so long for now.